Coming up on today's episode, we talk about how Formula One is becoming the benchmark for other sporting authorities around the world to follow in their management of the Covid-19 pandemic, how this season is shaping up to be the best season in F1 since 2012, as many of the teams and drivers are more evenly matched in the first two rounds of the 2020 F1 season, and has Charles Leclerc made Sebastian Vettel's mind up of what he is going to do after his contract runs out with Ferrari in the end of 2020. All this and more and the bigger stories after the first two rounds of the 2020 season in this episode of F1 24/7 News. How is Formula One changing the sporting world? That is a great statement. I'll get onto that very soon, but I just want to firstly give you this little announcement that what 54% of you guys watching this video are not subscribed. Now, we do hope that you enjoy the video and our content. I mean, we'd love you to be on board with us through the 70th year anniversary of F1. So if you haven't already, please hit that red subscribe button just down below this video. It will help us massively. You'll get a thumbs up from me and my co-host Jordan in the future videos. But second of all, if you do enjoy this video, we have so much more content for you guys heading through this season. Now we are heading into Hungary, which is round 3, and of course so many rounds that have been put onto the calendar and more content on and off the track. That includes race reviews and previews and much more. Now, if you want to find out what that much more is, there's only one thing you have to do. And that of course is to hit that subscribe button. You will find out what we have in store, and we hope that you enjoy that as well. You'll be part of the F1 debate show movement as well, and you'll find out so much more news that we have coming up. And we just hope you enjoy our content. Please come and subscribe with us, hit that notification bell as well, and we will shoot right to the top of your subscriber list. Keep up to date with all that we have coming out. You'll get notified when we release a video. We look forward to seeing you on board with us today. Right now, let's head into F1 24/7 News and the first story today. Since Formula One arrived in Austria for the first two weekends of the very quirky and very strange 70th year anniversary of Formula One, drivers and teams and personnel and everybody that's been involved in these two weekends have undergone Covid-19 tests, of course, to detect the coronavirus. That, of course, is still at large right now. Formula One wanted to move forward from this, of course, as every sport has done around the world, but things like the Premier League, which of course have regained a few weeks ago, are domestic sports. Formula One is an international sport. Parts, drivers, teams are from all around the world. And even though we don't have any flyaway races, of course, we still have different country races. E.g., we are on the way to Hungary, but actually at this time we're already in Hungary right now, setting up for the third round on Sunday, the Hungarian Grand Prix. And even though we don't have any races outside of Europe, and you could say Sochi's on the border, of course, Europe/Asia, in that kind of Western Europe-y where it is right now, we are looking like we're going to be possibly going to other flyaway races. But in that way, Formula One is a different sport to, of course, the other ones that have started. Now, as I said there, teams, drivers and personnel have undergone tests in these 2 weekends, and really in these 2 weeks, because of course they have stayed in Austria. Now, over 4,000 tests have been conducted with 0 positive cases. Now, the 4,000 tests that have been done, if any one of those cases came back positive, of course it will be dealt with in the social bubbles, and of course the plans that Limit Media and the FOM have put into play, alongside of course governing bodies such as the Austrian government and the World Health Organization and other sporting authorities that have of course been looking after Formula One in these 2 weeks. It has been a good practice by Formula One, keeping everyone safe as well. Now, these tests have been done on really a bi-daily kind of basis, 2 days a week, and that is for everyone in the paddock. Of course, drivers have been tested, team personnel have been tested, and that's of course from the bosses to the guys who just pat the wheel nuts heading into a race. The F1 journalists and the photographers and everyone that has been at the race, and it has been a positive one with 0 positive effects. Now, the social bubbles that have been put into play, really, there is some main categories, around 3 or 4 boxes that a team will have. These are social bubbles where there'll be people inside them, and they are not to be talking and not to be interacting with other people outside their bubbles. Now, to start off with, of course, you have the main team, the mechanics and things like that, the people that are mainly in the garage. Now, of course, one side will be kept away from the other side, even though they will, of course, be working in close proximity to each other. Now, one bubble will be the mechanics and the people that pack away the stuff afterwards, everyone that you see in the garage. The next one, of course, will be the team bosses. So, for example, use Mercedes for an example. Toto Wolff, Pete Bonington, and the other officials from Mercedes that sit on the pit wall will be in their own bubbles. So, of course, they will be sitting on the pit wall, they will be talking, and they will be in one bubble on themselves. And even though, of course, they will be talking to and interacting with in face-to-face they'll be talking to, of course, in the garage. They are not really to be interacting with the bubble of the mechanics. Now, of course, the two drivers will be in their own separate bubbles, and inside their bubble will, of course, be the driver and really 2 or 3 of their very close personnel that will be with them on a weekend. Now, this will include things like their personal assistant and their trainer, which, of course, will normally stay with them in the hotel and guide them through the weekend. Now, again, these bubbles have been put into place, so no real problems come around in the season. And if anyone does get coronavirus, one of those bubbles can be shut down, and of course everything else can work well. Now, I know what you're thinking. If a driver does get coronavirus, doesn't that mean that that team will not be working? Now, of course, that is exactly true, but it just means that there is less chance of them getting anything, and it keeps everybody safe. Now, again, everybody has been tested. Nobody has been taken out of these tests, and it has been a very positive one. So the title of this episode is, of course, what I'm going to be talking about now, which is how is it affecting other sports, and how is Formula One of the biggest sports to manage this Covid-19 pandemic? Well, again, as I just said there, we are an international sport. We're a different sport and a very unique one as well. Now, no sports have done as many testing as Formula One have done. 0 cases has been a really good management of the system, and of course the social bubbles that we have in play. Now, we've only been in one destination, which of course is Austria. Now, we'll have to judge this in the next few weeks, but it does look very positive from what Formula One have been able to manage in these 2 weeks in Austria, keeping everyone safe in the paddock, and of course limiting the interaction between drivers and teams. Journalists, as for example you might have seen with Sky Sports F1, some people are there, so of course David Croft, Martin Brundle are there, but they don't interact in the paddock. They just stay in the Sky box, and of course you have people like Simon Lazenby, Paul di Resta, who are in the paddock. People like Ted Kravitz, who do the paddock walk, or what's it called, the after the race thing. He is not allowed in the paddock. So the first one in Austria, the Austrian Grand Prix, he was on the start finish straight looking in through the barriers, and then the second one he was outside, of course, where all of the trucks are and things like that, the hospitality, while they were just packing up. And people like Anthony Davidson and Corinne Chandok stayed back in England, same as Channel 4, and of course a lot of pundits all around the world. There was only 20 photographers that were actually allowed at the race, and that was 10 around the track and 10 in the paddock, and they were not allowed to mingle. They weren't allowed to move around. So if you were one of the photographers around the track, you had one zone that you had to stay in. And also as well, if you were a photographer around the paddock, you actually were assigned to a team, and you'd have to wear some of their stuff. So if you were lucky enough to be a photographer, you would get Mercedes gear, you'd be allowed to go in the Mercedes paddock, and you would be a Mercedes person, which would be really, really cool, because you're just, a photographer. And obviously it would be very, it'd be a privilege, because very little people are going to be there. It has been a great success in these last 2 weekends in Austria. Of course, for the Austrian Grand Prix and the Steiermark Grand Prix, it has been a good success. Now, again, the circuit has been moving on to Hungary, which is a few countries down. No need for air travel. They've just been driving there. Teams and drivers, of course, have been separate in the transit as well, and they're setting up at Hungary, ready for FP1 and the weekend to get started on Friday, and of course this weekend for Sunday's race, round 3 of the 70th anniversary 2020 Formula 1 season. Firstly, of course, it's actually incredible that we have got this far, and we are actually looking at round 3. Formula 1 has done a great job to manage this. Ross Brawn has come out and said that Liberty Media have done their part, and Formula 1 has been a great sport managing with this problem going forward. We hopefully are reducing the number of cases, and of course we are hopefully reducing this pandemic to hopefully get to some actual racing where this really isn't a worry, of course, later on in the season. And after Sochi, which of course is the latest round 10, and the only, as I said there, the flyaway race, but again it's flyaway race / Europe, if you want to say. Hopefully we'll be adding some more in Brazil, Abu Dhabi, possibly China, and of course maybe even the inaugural round in Vietnam. We'll have to see what happens there, but they have been doing a great job with the tests. We do hope that everyone stays safe out there and no one gets a positive outcome. And of course, hopefully this is, the testing from Formula 1 hopefully has a better impact for all the other sports going forward in the world. So let me know, guys, what you think in the comment section below about these sports. Do you think that the testing that Formula 1 has been doing has been a very positive one? And hopefully other sports can follow suit in that as well. Of course, every other sport around the world, every league from all parts of the world have been trying to cope with this the best way that they can, and of course keep everyone safe, from the athletes to the team personnel to absolutely everyone that is there. And hopefully one day we can get the S word back, what we're all waiting for, which of course is spectators or fans back at the circuit, which of course we all want to do. The chances of that happening in 2020 aren't great, but if this has got a better outcome and a speedy outcome, and Formula 1 can actually help the ongoing, if they can help our sport and say we can get fans back, everyone else might follow suit, get safe, and hopefully we might get fans by the end of 2020 season, which of course is what we are hoping for. So let me know in the comment section below, what do you think about that? How is Formula 1 helping in your opinion as well? Do you think we'll get fans by the end of the 2020 season? And did you think the last two races were a good one? Not just from a driver point of view, because of course it was a great two races. For some teams and drivers, it's been a success. Some drivers and teams, it hasn't. But in terms of the safety, how has the no crowd affected you? The teams and the drivers, of course, the different podiums that we've had, the robots, and of course the safety aspects that F1 have been putting into play for the teams, the drivers, the personnel, the pundits, and everyone who has been at this very, very strange opening and second round of the 2020 season. Since the start of the V6 era, Formula 1 has been dominated really by one primary team, which of course has been Mercedes. 2014 and 2015 saw some good battles, and of course Williams F1 team really fighting at the top, and of course it's been a slip down for them, but really it hasn't been a great battle. We've had a few midfield teams maybe sneaking into the top three, but it stayed the same of Mercedes dominating, Red Bull and Ferrari playing catch up, the midfield teams, and maybe one or two, and that might include Williams, teams at the back. But these two first rounds have showed that Formula 1 might be heading to a very successful year, and one of the best years we have seen since the 2012 Formula 1 season. There's 7 different winners, 7 different drivers who's won the first 7 races. Now that was a team and a driver frenzy, where teams were just performing better and drivers were performing better. And as I say, if you won the first round, you weren't winning the second round. It took until round 8 of Fernando Alonso to actually break that run of different winners. And those winners included Pastor Maldonado of Williams, of course, the first time Williams won in 8 years. And he still remains the most recent Williams winner to that day. One Ferrari won that in Fernando Alonso, 2 McLarens and 2 Red Bulls. It was a great start to the season, but since then it has dominated. It has referred back to a dominance of Mercedes. One team, just Lewis or Valtteri, mainly Lewis, winning the races. But these 2 rounds have been a good run. Now again, we're looking at the top field. It has been a Mercedes 1-2. Valtteri Bottas wins the first race of the Austrian Grand Prix, and the second race, the Styrian Grand Prix, Lewis Hamilton takes a victory. Valtteri Bottas, of course, leaves with great points and a good first and second place, and 43 points for him in this season. But looking more at the midfield battles, it has been a very successful 2 weekends of on-track racing. McLaren is the team that, of course, have emerged, I would say, more victorious than Mercedes, or what is actually printed on the 2020 Formula 1 standards right now. McLaren have had an absolutely incredible 2 opening rounds of the 2020 season, with Lando Norris getting his first podium and the youngest British podium contender to be in 3rd place. It was absolutely incredible from the young driver there. That was the first round. Carlos Sainz got onto the road in qualifying, and a great battle by both McLarens in these 2 rounds mean that they are very successful, and they are 2nd place in the constructor standings heading into the 3rd round of the Hungarian Grand Prix. It's been great from McLaren, but not just McLaren. We have had the Racing Points, we have had AlphaTauris, we've even had Williams fighting for points. Now, of course, Williams haven't been up there like Racing Point have been, but they have been showing some great promise. Now, we all remember the first race in the Austrian Grand Prix when Nicolas Latifi finished in 11th place. Now, we had 11 contenders finishing, and of course that was last place. Very unfortunate for him, but he was 1 position outside the points. What an incredible debut that would have been. Now, we've had some great battles by the teams. The Steiermark Grand Prix finished with a 3-way battle on the final lap between the Racing Points, McLaren, and even a Renault of Esteban Ocon crossing the line with around a second to separate them. We have seen some great battles, and hopefully this midfield battle can equate to a top field battle in the future. Now, obviously, a lot of people are hinting at the fact that McLaren are now back, and McLaren are going to have a very strong season going forward. Carlos Sainz is moving to Ferrari next year. Both Carlos and Ferrari are ahead of the Ferrari team, and of course Charles and Seb in the constructors. And even though I might be kind of thinking that isn't the best move, of course, when we move on to the 3rd statement, you'll realise why. But he has still got a year with McLaren to bring them, hopefully, from the midfield to the front. Now, there was a lot of debate, a lot of predictions that McLaren were going to do this, get the podium and possibly fight for race wins this year. It was looking negative, especially over winter testing, but after the results that we've had in the Austrian and the Steiermark Grand Prix, it is looking positive for McLaren moving forward. Also, Racing Point, of course, have been in the news about the RS20 being an almost exact copy of the W10, the 2019 Mercedes car. Now, that has been, of course, under investigation and things like that, but it can't be said that they haven't made an incredible car. And Sergio and Lance, but mainly Sergio Perez, is really the helm of that team and doing an absolutely incredible job in that car. Some incredible finishes, almost got onto the podium in the first round, and is definitely a contender for the next few races. Even Lance Stroll has a shout. And the brand new team, AlphaTauri, what a great start that they have had. Really, really strong from them. Pierre Gasly really showing his pace in qualifying, and even Pierre and Daniel having good first 2 rounds in Austria and Steiermark. It's looking positive, it's looking good heading into the 3rd round in Hungary. 2012 was packed full of different teams battling at the front, even though it slowed down, of course, towards the end, and it was merely a Red Bull dominant, and of course Sebastian winning. It still was a lot more teams, including teams like Sauber and even Force India, and even Lotus, I guess you could say, having a fight at the front. Different winners, different rounds, really exciting, and this is what we are looking at. We could be seeing, even though it's a season that started in July, in a very weird season, and some might say a season that we just want to move on from, people might be saying that this is one of the best seasons that we've had in F1 for a very long time. And even though we're 2 rounds in, we could just see, we can sense, put your money on it, because it's going to be a spicy one. What do you guys think about what we've just had the first 2 rounds? They have been good, they have been quirky. Look at the tables, look at the F1 table and the constructor table. It does look spicy, it does look promising for the rest of the season. What do you think? Do you think it's going to be a good year, or am I going to eat my words later on after Hungary, or maybe later on in the season? And it's not going to be like 2012, but it's got a good feeling like it's heading that way towards the end as we head through the season and into Hungary this weekend. Now, the final story is, of course, a big one. A bit of a shorter one, but obviously we need to give our views and opinions and a statement that has come out in the last few days, of course, since the incident, which, of course, is Ferrari and the ongoings of what happened in the Styrian Grand Prix when Charles Leclerc crashed into Sebastian Vettel going uphill into the Jochen curve. Now, this was a big, it's a big corner that causes crashes. Look at Max Verstappen and Charles Leclerc last year battling for the victory. And also look at 2016, Nico Rosberg going into the side of Lewis Hamilton. For some reason, it's a corner that causes crashes. In 2016, when Nico took out Lewis, it was big, and heading into the next round in the British Grand Prix, Nico was booed on stage and through the rounds. Now, there'll be no fans to boo anyone like that, but if there was, would Charles Leclerc be in line for boos? Now, he went into the side of Sebastian Vettel. He took out Sebastian's rear wing. Too much damage for them both, and they both retired. It was a massive shock to see. I joined the race as it was going on, and I saw 2 Ferraris were out, and it really rang alarm bells of what happened. I was trying to think before I actually saw what happened. It was a massive shock. Now, Charles Leclerc, of course, came out with a statement first on and said that he was sorry. Sorry wasn't the only word he could say, just all this sorry. And of course that he didn't mean to go into Sebastian Vettel and cost the team what would have been vital. Pointing at 43 points, the maximum they could have taken. So he, on scale, cost them that. But it wasn't all doom and gloom at Ferrari from Charles' side. Now, of course, Sebastian and Charles have been struggling in that car. The Ferrari car, the F1000, has not been strong at all. Really, really lacking the pace in qualifying and in the race. I mean, look at Charles Leclerc, couldn't even get into Q3, couldn't even get into Q3. Sebastian Vettel beat him just to get into 10th. And for somebody like that, for a 4-time race winner and a 4-time world champion, we should not be saying things like that. It didn't look great for Scuderia Ferrari, especially we are heading into what could be a great season for them. Of course, as I said, the 1000th race for Ferrari, and they've just been gifted a home advantage, of course, as we are now moving to Mugello, the home of Ferrari in Tuscany, the track that Ferrari used for testing alongside Fiorina as well, and a track that is going to be their 1000th Grand Prix. And the talk of letting Ferrari fans into the gates was a good idea, but now, if they're going to see that, might not be. Now, Sebastian Vettel, of course, is out of contract at the end of the 2020 F1 season, and rumours have been going around where he is going to go. A massive door has slammed in his face in the way of Fernando Alonso going to Renault, so it's unclear where he's going to go. Is he going to stay in Formula 1? That might have been a seat he might have wanted, but now it's not going to be. Of course, drivers have not been signed. For example, Lance Stroll at Racing Point to be known as Aston Martin next year, and that might be a hidden place for the 4-time world champion. I'm going to chuck it in there just for the sake of saying it, of course, but Red Bull is on the cards, especially now Alexander Albon is under the cusp a little bit, and we all know how Red Bull like to change their drivers. So it's looking like Sebastian, he might stay, but I think it's outweighing the self that he might retire at the end of the season. He won't stay with Ferrari, of course, that has been clear, and he's come out with what has happened over the winter. For example, Covid19 was not the reason, and he was told to leave. But is he going to stay now? It's unclear. And what is his relationship going to be like with Ferrari? Well, after the Charles Leclerc crash, have Charles just made Sebastian's decision? Is he going to retire now? Of course, that is massive team problems. Team problems, of course, which Sebastian Vettel has dealt with before in the way of Mark Webber at Red Bull Racing. Multi-21 and crashes such as Turkey 2010 come to mind in that way. Now, of course, Charles said it was an accident, but Multi-21 might have been an accident. And it's hard to judge, especially a man like Seb, who has got so much pressure on his shoulders. Final season at Ferrari, he's failing in what he came there to do, which of course is to match Michael Schumacher in winning the title with the Italian team. What is going to happen to the German driver? It is a tough one to say, and of course there is a lot of statements and a lot of speculations and a lot of rumours coming out, especially when he was seen having meetings with Cyril Abiteboul and Toto Wolff in the paddock in the final 2 rounds. Of course, social distancing, as I just said about the bubbles, in different bubbles, so they can't really interact in that way. So let us know in the comment section below, what do you think about Sebastian Vettel? Where is he going to go? And the Ferrari incident. Has Charles made Sebastian's mind up about where he's going to go in 2020? Because he isn't staying with Ferrari, but in terms of the ties and the relationships and the possible chance of maybe Sebastian doing like a Michael Schumacher, managing the team, being with the team for the next few years, has that gone? And what is it going to be like for the rest of the 2020 season? What's Ferrari's relationship going to be like between Charles and Seb, and of course the ongoings in the Italian team? So there we go, guys. That is the end of the episode. Thank you very much for watching this one. The first story was a big one. Let me know, of course, the opinions on that. We are really in an age that Formula 1 is changing the world, and hopefully for the better and in other sports. Thank you very much for watching. Of course, as we said at the start, make sure to like and subscribe if you have enjoyed yourself. If you haven't subscribed already, please stay with us on this big journey. We have so much more content coming your way. You'll find out what it is if you click that red button, and that's the only way you will find out. But we hope that you can be with us throughout this very quirky 2020 F1 season. Hungary is this round we have this weekend. We have so much more content coming your way on lieu of that round and the third round of the 2020 F1 season. I know we are flying through, we're in July, but round 3, can't fault that. And yes, we hope you've enjoyed this episode, and until next time, guys, we'll see you later.